You know what? We're shitty people, Joel. It's been that way for a long time.
No, we are survivors.
This is our chance.
It is over, Tess! Now, we tried. Let's just go home.
Guess what? We're shitty people, Joel. It's been that way for a long time.
No, we are survivors.
This is our chance.
It is over, Tess!
Hey everyone, welcome. We have a great show in store for you today. I thought I'd just get the serious stuff out of the way first. So, to me, voice acting is one of the most underappreciated forms of acting in Hollywood. Rather than being in front of a camera, many voice actors in video games, cartoons, and commercials spend most of their time behind a microphone. So it's no surprise to me that we don't see their faces like we would a Leonardo DiCaprio or a Julia Roberts. The truth is that acting is acting, whether we're talking hand models, voice actors, or even stuntmen. In 2012, when Naughty Dog set out to film the Last of Us video game, they revolutionized what would become the most successful IP Sony had ever produced. In the first round of clips I showed you, we go back in time about 10 years to where we see the brilliance of actors Annie Wersching and Troy Baker as they pound out a beautiful monologue using motion capture technology.
This is our chance.
I'd like to dedicate this review to the memory of Annie Wersching, who played Tess in the Last of Us video game. Annie is drop-dead gorgeous and was most known for her roles on 24, Star Trek Picard, and Charmed. She passed away Sunday of cancer at the young age of 45. She was certainly one of my favorite characters in this ever-growing Last of Us video game universe. She will be missed. Rest in paradise, Annie.
Davey, 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 Davey.
Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome to DaveyJay Today. I'm your host, DaveyJay, and today we're going to be talking about HBO's The Last of Us Season 1, Episode 2, Infected. So the episode begins in Jakarta, Indonesia, which was heard briefly on the radio if you were really paying attention in episode 1. It starts off by having military personnel walk into what appears to be a restaurant, and they see a middle-aged woman and they say, "Come with us." So they take her over to what is presumed to be some kind of lab where they verify, "Hey, you're a mycologist, right?" And that's a scientist that studies fungus. So this woman's very well respected in the fungus community. So she looks under a slide and she goes, "Yeah, that's cordyceps." And the military guy's like, "Well, that was taken from a human." Ooh. She's like, "Show me." So the next scene, there's this woman, obviously lifeless, lying on a table. It's some kind of morgue deal. So the scientist puts on this hazmat suit and she goes into this room. And they're like, she has a bite on her leg, and she looks at her leg, kind of cuts it open with a scalpel, and it's super gnarly. When you make an incision, you expect to see blood, but you don't see any of that. All you see is like this growth come out. It's really kind of gnarly. The next scene, she kind of looks over the body and goes up to the mouth where she reaches in with one of her tools, and these tendrils that are still obviously alive, even though the human's dead, they just come out at her like, and she like gets freaked out and runs out of the room. So they're sitting in a conference room talking. They bring her some tea, and she's like, "Well, what happened to the other people?" "Well, she was bit at work and she became violent." "Well, where does she work?" "They work at a flower factory." So that's when you start to get that this disease is coming from grains, which is kind of weird, but I think that's how this fungus works in real life. Obviously, it can't take control of humans. So they use a lot of real life science to apply this to make it almost a little more scary, because we know this stuff is really out there. The only thing is that it can't come in contact and take over humans as a host. So that's a solid bonus. Anywho, so they're sitting down in the conference room, and the military guy's like, "Yeah, she works at a grain factory. She got bit. She started acting violently. A few others went home sick. They had to be shot later on." "Well, what happened to the one that bit her?" "Oh, they haven't been able to find her." "And how many people were infected at work?" 4 that they know of, 14 are missing. She's like, ooh, and she's like shaking. She has her tea in her hand that she never takes a sip of, by the way. Probably for the better. And they said, what should we do? You're the scientist we came to for help to stop this thing. And she says, B-O-M-B, bomb. Bomb the cities, bomb everyone in it to try to stop this thing. And then, of course, we get the awesome Last of Us introduction and the sweet title card. We then see Ellie waking up in what appears to be some kind of a storefront, but it really reminds me of The Last of Us 2. You got the vegetation literally growing inside the center of the store, and there's like all this grass in the store, and she's laying on it. It's just so cool. I love how they paid attention to all the video game stuff and put this in here for the people who love to play the video games. Speaking of developing The Last of Us for TV, this just so happens to be Neil Druckmann's directorial debut. Not only is Druckmann the co-president of Naughty Dog, which for those of you who aren't familiar with the brand, Naughty Dog is the company that brought us classic hits like Crash Bandicoot for the PS1, and more recently, Uncharted and The Last of Us, but not without the expert guidance of Neil Druckmann and his team. Considering this is a heavy, what do the infected do? How does it all work type episode, I think it was only right for Druckmann to be on deck with showrunner Craig Mazin directing Episode 1, and Neil Druckmann, who many credit to be the sole creator of The Last of Us, to direct Episode 2. Anyways, Joel's obviously got his gun on her because he still doesn't trust her, and then they say, okay, eat something and then we're going to get going, and they leave, and their mission is to get to the State House because that's where the Fireflies are that will take Ellie west. So, that's their mission. So Tess, Joel, and Ellie set off into the city, and they see a bunch of infected that are just laying on the ground in front of this huge building, and Ellie's like, ooh, look at them, they're connected. And then Tess says, more than you know. And apparently, and this is different from the video game, if you step on one of the tendrils or some of the fungus, like a couple of miles away, there could be a bunch of infected that could start running. They automatically know where you are because you stepped on the fungus over here, and then they start chasing you. It's like GPS. It's kind of scary. And I'll say this, it makes everything interesting, and this will come back at the end of the episode. Spoiler alert. And if you're watching this, there's a bunch of spoilers, so hey, spoiler warning. If you don't know by now, this is a TV show review, so get used to it, people. So Tess is like, well, with all those infected over there, we can't go that way, right? So Joel's like, ooh, we could go to the museum. And if you played the video game before, everybody knows what the museum is. It's one of the coolest looking levels. You kind of have to be stealthy and sneak around and go through the museum and see these little sculptures and paintings, and the clickers try to get you. It's such a cool level. Anyways, if you haven't played the game, you guys gotta play the game. They go to the museum and they notice that there's a bunch of fungus growing outside the whole building.
I have a spare hand.
Congratulations.
Now that it's the daytime, you see this CG city, and you can tell that a ton of money went into these episodes. So as they're walking towards the museum, you see another shot of the skyline, but this time it is broad daylight, and you see where the budget money went to make this CG absolutely brilliant. The skyline, the buildings have collapsed, there's growth and green and vegetation all over the place, and they did such a spectacular job. It looks absolutely amazing, and once again, I'm left feeling like I'm cheating on The Walking Dead. Sad. Anyways, The Last of Us has been, in the past only 2 episodes, have showed out The Walking Dead completely. But that's just another story for a different day. Anyways, so they set out towards the museum, which is covered in a bunch of fungus, and they're like, watch your step, be quiet, don't talk unless I tell you to talk, be silent. So they go through the building, and they get upstairs, and then they all of a sudden hear it. That's right. It's the famous clicker. Oh, and right before this, Ellie was like,
Everyone said the open city was crazy. Like swarms of infected running around everywhere.
is it true that there's infected out there that shoot spores from their head or see like bats and have their head split open? And yes, that's what we see next. When they're upstairs at the museum, they're sneaking around, and out of nowhere, here comes the infected, and they're so well done. The prosthetics in this are just amazing, and I don't know who plays the infected in this, but the clickers look so amazing. You have to think it was like some kind of a ballet dancer just because of the way their bodies move. Like, that's not a good impression, but I think it would have to be some kind of professional dancer. So Joel ends up killing one of them, and then one of them lunges across the table, and you slowly but surely notice that Joel kind of has the echo sound location down almost like the clickers have. He has been around them enough where he can tell where they are with his back turned to him, so it's kind of cool. Anyways, Joel ends up finally taking out one of them, and there's a second one that lunges across, and it ends up tackling Tess and Ellie to the ground, and as they're trying to fight him off, they escape, and Tess somehow puts a hatchet in their head, and then Joel shoots it, boom, finally they're down. But Tess is acting a little bit strange, pretty intense. They run outside the window, and now they can finally see the State House, and they fix up their ankles. Oh, are you hurt? Are you hurt? No, you're not. Tess is still acting really weird. Finally, they make it to the State House, and just like the video game, all the Fireflies are gone. But it's a little different in this episode of television. What we see is one of the Fireflies must have turned, and so one Firefly got sick, and then another Firefly got infected, and then this Firefly didn't trust the other guy, and he started killing him, and then he made him sick, and before you knew it, all the Fireflies are all gone. And there's just a bunch of supplies sitting out, a bunch of weaponry and explosives and grenades and stuff like that. And Tess is having a freaking anxiety attack. She is acting like the twins just lost. She's like freaking out. She's like, oh, there's got to be somebody here. Maybe they left a book or some kind of piece of paper that says what they're going to do, what the mission's about, where they're going. And Joel's like, it's over, Tess, just like in the video game. And then we get this really, really sad scene where she's like,
oh my god, she's infected.
our luck had to run out sooner or later.
Let me see. Joe, it's gonna be... Show it to me.
Oops. Right? Yep. Ellie's like, I can tell she's infected. And Joel's like, show me. And we see her bite, and it's too late. She's already in the process of turning. I forgot to mention that Ellie was bitten earlier in the show as well, probably around the same time that Tess was bitten, which means she's been bitten officially twice. And I think they did that just to prove, like, there you go. She even got bitten this episode, and she's still immune. So now Joel has no choice but to trust her, because now he sees Tess turning so quickly and already showing symptoms, and Ellie is just normal. She is immune to the bites. But it's really sad. And then there's this scene where, because of the fact Joel is so cold and dead to the world, he can't even give Tess a proper goodbye. So what it results in is Tess saying, do your best to save her. We've been doing things selfishly our whole life, and usually they were for the wrong reasons. Go out there, take her where she needs to go, and set things right. And so Joel grabs Ellie, and they run out of there, and Ellie's like, no, I'm not gonna leave her behind. And he doesn't even say goodbye to Tess. But then what happens is we get this cool sequence. The tendrils come up from the ground, and obviously the infected track them. Okay, you know the big group of infected I told you we saw earlier? Well, they were notified because when they stepped on them and there was all this activity, they knew where Joel, Ellie, and Tess were. So they all come running and charging towards the State House. And it's just a matter of time. So Joel and Ellie run out of there, and Tess has one more chance. She pours a bunch of gasoline and a bunch of grenades, and she has one of those Zippo lighters, and she's trying to get it started desperately, trying to get that flame go, and she's trying, and it's not lighting, and all of a sudden, all the infected run in, and they start to notice her. One walks right up to her, and it's almost as if he's gonna give her a kiss, but instead, he gives her the tendrils, and before she can fully turn into one of those things, she gets that Zippo lit, and boom, the whole thing explodes. So that's basically the episode. Tess ends up passing away, and they make it to the State House and find that there are no Fireflies there. So what are they going to do next? I'm excited to see episode 3. I'll be posting that review very soon. I want to thank you all for watching. To me, it's still amazing that more than one person cares to check on my YouTube channel and watch my videos on a daily basis. So I want to thank you all for continuing to watch. I hope you all will smash that like button.
Keep it here. Smash that like button.
You know, I love to say that cliche. Smash that like button and continue to watch my videos. Tell your friends if you like what I do. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. I've said my piece. Now it's time to hear yours.